Look at this country on a map. Small, landlocked, surrounded by mountains. Most people think they know Afghanistan. War, tribes, ancient traditions. But here is the truth that almost nobody talks about. When scientists took DNA samples from Afghan people and compared them to every known population on Earth, they got results that made no sense. The DNA didn't match one region. It didn't match two. It matched everywhere. Steppe nomads from Russia, Mongolian horsemen from East Asia, ancient farmers from Iran, city builders from the Indus River, and something else, something they still can't explain. In 2019, Dr. Vagheesh Narasimhan from the University of Texas, along with Dr. David Reich from Harvard Medical School, two of the world's top geneticists, published the largest ancient DNA study of South and Central Asia ever done, in over 500 ancient individuals. And their conclusion was clear. Afghanistan is not a source of any one bloodline. It is the collision point of all of them. The Hindu Kush Mountains didn't just divide civilizations, they collected them. And that raises one question that I want you to keep in your mind for this entire video. If Afghanistan's DNA doesn't belong here, then who does it belong to? This is not just a science question. Today in 2025, ethnic identity in Afghanistan, Pashtun, Hazara, Tajik, Uzbek, decides who survives and who doesn't. People are being killed over bloodlines, over ancestry claims, over who really belongs to this land. And meanwhile, in a genetics lab, the data is saying something completely different. If you are someone who loves untold history and real DNA mysteries, subscribe right now. Because what is coming in this video will genuinely surprise you. But before we go anywhere, we have to go back, way back, to a civilization so powerful, so advanced, so completely forgotten, that history doesn't even have a name for its people. They were here first. And half of every Afghan alive today carries their DNA. Now, picture northern Afghanistan, year 2100 BCE. No one has heard of Alexander the Great yet. The Mongols are 3,000 years away. Islam hasn't arrived yet. And there, in the river plains where Afghanistan meets Turkmenistan, a civilization is rising. Walled cities, drainage systems, fire temples, a trade network stretching all the way to Egypt. These people were mining lapis lazuli from the Afghan mountains and selling it to the pharaohs. Sure, archaeologists call this civilization the Bactria-Margiana Archaeological Complex, or the BMAC. Soviet archaeologist Viktor Sarianidi discovered it in the 1970s when he was digging in what he thought was empty desert. It was not empty. When scientists finally pulled DNA from BMAC skeletons, they found something remarkable. These people were made up of ancient Iranian farmers, about 60 to 65%, some Anatolian ancestry from modern-day Turkey, and a small but clear signal from South Asian hunter-gatherers, which means people from the Indus River Valley were already trading with this civilization, already meeting, already mixing, thousands of years before anyone thought that connection existed. Now here is what makes this emotional. The BMAC collapsed around 1700 BCE. Nobody knows exactly why. Maybe drought, maybe invasion, maybe both. But the people didn't disappear. Their genes survived inside the cultures that came after them. Today, 40 to 45% of the average Afghan genome traces back to the BMAC. Almost half of every Afghan alive today is carrying the DNA of a civilization that has no name in any living language, no tradition, no story, no memory. They built fire temples in the mountains of Afghanistan thousands of years ago, and nobody remembers them. But here is where it gets even stranger. When scientists looked more carefully at those BMAC graveyards, they found something they didn't expect. A small number of bodies whose DNA was completely different from the others. Bodies that didn't fit the BMAC genetic pattern at all. Their DNA came from the south, from the Indus River Valley. And that points to a civilization so mysterious that after 150 years of archaeology, we still can't read their writing. Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, the Indus Valley Civilization. One of the greatest ancient cultures ever discovered. Advanced cities, standardized bricks, a perfectly planned drainage system that some modern cities don't even have today, and a script carved on thousands of small seals that no scholar in the world has ever decoded. We don't know what language they spoke. We don't know what gods they worshipped. We don't even know what they called themselves. Around 1900 BCE, the Indus Valley Civilization collapsed. Historians said they fell inward, they disappeared. But Dr. Narasimhan's 2019 science study found the genetic signal going a different direction, north, into Afghanistan. There are two specific DNA markers called haplogroups R2 and L that are very common in South Asian populations connected to the Indus Valley. These same markers show up in Pashtun populations in Afghanistan, and crucially, these markers were already there before the Aryan migrations arrived. They are pre-Aryan. They are ancient. Now, think about what that means. The Pashtun people, Afghanistan's largest and most politically powerful ethnic group, have always told a story about their ancestry. Ancient warriors, noble bloodlines, Aryan heritage. But the oldest layer of their DNA quietly tells a different story. That oldest layer belongs to city builders from the Indus Plain, farmers and traders who lived and died in a civilization that the Pashtuns don't even have a myth about. What these people are genetically remembered, but culturally completely forgotten. And here is what truly gets me. The Harappan script has never been decoded, so we cannot ask them who they were. We have their bones, we have their DNA, we have their ruins. But we cannot read a single word they left behind. Their only voice left is a haplogroup in a genetics database. And somewhere in southern Afghanistan, along the Helmand River Valley near Kandahar, archaeologists have found signs of a Harappan-connected cultural zone, a piece of that lost civilization, sitting in the land that became Afghanistan, hidden in plain sight for thousands of years. But the Harappans were not the last group to leave their mark here. Centuries later, something arrived from a completely different direction, a wave so massive, so powerful, that it changed the language and religion of half the world. And Dr. David Reich from Harvard called it, quote, one of the most consequential events in human history. Close your eyes and imagine the open grasslands north of the Black Sea. Around 2000 BCE, a population lives there. They ride horses. They speak a language that no longer exists, but that language is the ancestor of English, Persian, Hindi, Russian, Greek, and dozens more. They carry a Y chromosome marker called R1A1A, and they are moving south. These are the Yamnaya-descended Steppe pastoralists. Scientists call their southern migration the Indo-Iranian expansion. They came through Central Asia. They hit Afghanistan. And they didn't just pass through. Afghanistan became the crucible where their culture crystallized. When the oldest layers of the Rig Veda, the ancient sacred text of the Vedic tradition, describe landscapes that match Afghanistan's geography. Rivers, mountains, terrain, not India, not Iran, Afghanistan. This land may have been the spiritual home of Vedic religion before it was anything else. Now here is the twist that changes everything. The DNA marker, Jautu R1A1A, is most common in Pashtun and Tajik populations today. Standard history says the Aryans brought this gene down from the steppe into South Asia. But Dr. Vagheesh Narasimhan, the lead scientist on the 2019 study, noted something that complicates the whole story. The diversity of this marker, how many variations of it exist, is actually highest in the Indus Valley, not on the steppe. What does that mean? Soon it means the direction of the story, who came from where, is far more complex than the simple Aryan invasion narrative that textbooks have been teaching for decades. But before science can fully answer that question, another layer arrives. Because Afghanistan now had 3 genetic civilizations stacked on top of each other, BMAC farmers at the bottom, Indus Valley traders in the middle, steppe warriors on top. And then, in 327 BCE, a young king from Macedonia arrived with his army. And somewhere in the Hindu Kush mountains, he left something behind. Deep in the mountains of northeastern Afghanistan, there is a region called Nuristan. Until 1895, it was known as Kafiristan, meaning land of the infidels, because the people living there were not Muslim. They had their own gods, wooden-carved deities, ritual dances, and a polytheist religion that sounded, to historians who studied it, more like ancient Vedic Hinduism than anything else. In 1895, the Afghan Emir Abdur Rahman Khan sent his army into those mountains and gave the people a choice: convert to Islam or face the consequences. The conversion happened in a matter of weeks. An entire pre-Islamic religious tradition, thousands of years old, was erased in under a month. But here is what made the world notice these people before the conversion. They looked European: blonde hair, red hair, green eyes, blue eyes, faces that wouldn't look strange in Greece or Macedonia. In the middle of Afghanistan, British colonial officers who visited in the 1800s reported it. Afghan legends said it, and the local oral tradition said it clearly: we are the descendants of Alexander the Great's soldiers. The Greeks who came with Alexander in 327 BCE got cut off in these mountains and never left. It is a beautiful story. And when scientists tested Nuristani DNA, they found Greek lineages, present, real, but faint, because the full picture showed something older and more surprising. Nuristani DNA actually diverged from surrounding Afghan populations thousands of years before Alexander arrived. They are not primarily Greek descendants. They are remnants of an ancient population that had been genetically isolated in those mountains since before Alexander's grandfather was born. Their DNA includes a high percentage of something called CHG ancestry, Caucasus hunter-gatherer, a lineage that is almost completely absent in surrounding ethnic groups. They are a genetic time capsule, a living relic of a population that existed before the civilizations we just talked about. And their isolated language, Nuristani, forms its own independent branch of Indo-European, not Iranian, not Indo-Aryan, not Greek, something older than all of them. Scientists cannot fully place its origin. Now, that community was about a European-looking, genetically unique, isolated mountain people. But wait until you hear about the group whose DNA points not west, not south, not north, but east, all the way to Mongolia. Because this next story is not just genetically fascinating, it is genuinely heartbreaking. Look at a map of Afghanistan and find the Central Highlands, the area called Hazarajat. Now look at a genetic map of East Asian DNA in Central Asia. The overlap is almost perfect. When the Hazara people of Central Afghanistan carry DNA that, by every measurement, points across the Karakoram Range, across the Gobi Desert, all the way to the Mongolian steppe, more than 3,000 miles away. In 2019, a study published in the Journal of Forensic and Legal Medicine, led by Dr. Guanglin He from Sichuan University in China and co-authored by Dr. Atif Adnan and Dr. Alaa Raka from Pakistan, confirmed something remarkable. 57.8% of Hazara ancestry traces back to Mongolian origins. Some Hazara individuals carry a specific Y chromosome marker called C2 cluster, which is the proposed genetic signature of Genghis Khan's own male lineage. Now here is the history. In the 13th century, the Mongol army swept through Afghanistan. Survivors described it as the end of the world. These cities that had stood for 1,000 years were turned to dust. Rivers ran red. Entire populations were wiped out. But Mongol garrisons stayed behind. Soldiers who remained in the Afghan highlands married local women, and over generations became something entirely new. They became the Hazara. And now the part that is genuinely painful to say out loud. Today, the Hazara people are one of the most persecuted groups in Afghanistan. The Taliban has specifically targeted them. They are Shia Muslim in a Sunni majority country. They are called outsiders. They are called foreign. They are placed at the bottom of Afghan society. The cruelest irony in this entire story: the people who carry the DNA of the empire that once ruled the world are now the most marginalized community in a landlocked, war-broken country. When Genghis Khan's genetic legacy survived, it survived 800 years of history, and it is living today, in poverty, in exile, under the threat of erasure. The Mongols were not the last conquerors to leave DNA behind in Afghanistan, because the Silk Road, the ancient trading network that connected China to Rome, also left something behind, something that nobody expected to find here, something that points of all places to ancient Israel. The Silk Road was not just a trade route. For geneticists, it was the greatest DNA mixing corridor in human history. And right at the western Central Asian junction of that corridor, where northern Afghanistan sits, Populations were exchanging genes on a scale we are only now beginning to understand. A 2024 genomic study of Central Asian peoples confirmed it. Northern Afghan, Uzbek, and Turkmen populations carry East Asian ancestry from the Altai steppe, West Eurasian ancestry from the Iranian plateau, and traces of lineages that cluster with Eastern European populations, all in the same genome. Think about what that means for one single person. A Turkmen shepherd living in northern Afghanistan today carries chromosomes that were once carried by a Scythian warrior on the Kazakh steppe, an Iranian farmer from the Zagros Mountains, and a Chinese merchant from Gansu province. None of those people knew each other. None of them chose this, but their DNA found each other in Afghanistan and stayed. Now, the ancient city of Balkh in northern Afghanistan was called al-Bilad by medieval Arab geographers, the mother of all cities. Well, many historians believe it was the birthplace of Zoroastrianism, the world's oldest organized monotheistic adjacent religion. And genetic evidence suggests that even ancient Balkh itself was a genetic mosaic. No single founding population, just a convergence of people from everywhere. The holiest city in the ancient Iranian world was cosmopolitan from day one. But hidden in the Silk Road genetic data, in the DNA of certain Pashtun populations, scientists found something that nobody was prepared for, a genetic signal, pointing toward the Levant, toward ancient Israel. And from that signal came a claim so explosive, so politically loaded, so deeply woven into Pashtun identity, that it has been debated in Israeli universities, Pakistani government offices, and Afghan tribal councils for over 200 years. Actually, the claim that the Pashtun people are the lost tribes of Israel. This is not a fringe idea. It comes from inside Pashtun tradition itself. A historical manuscript called Makhzan-i-Afghani, one of the most referenced documents in Pashtun genealogy, traces the Pashtun lineage back to a figure named Qais Abdur Rashid, who is said to have met the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and accepted Islam. And further back, this lineage connects to the house of King Saul, Hazrat Talut, and through him to Bani Israel, the children of Israel, the descendants of Prophet Yaqub, peace be upon him. This is not just a story. This is a genealogical claim that generations of Pashtuns have carried as part of their identity. Now, when geneticists tested it, things got interesting. Dr. Navras Jat Afridi, an Indian researcher who specifically studied Pashtun DNA in communities claiming Israelite descent, found that in a study of 1,500 individuals from the Afridi Pashtun clan, 650 of them carried genetic markers similar to those found in Jewish populations. Separate studies found that Pashtun DNA shows 68.1% similarity to Ashkenazi Jewish DNA, the second highest similarity after Iranian and Iraqi Jewish groups. Now, a very important point for anyone watching this. This is not a claim that Pashtuns are Jewish. This is not what the science says. What the Quran tells us is that Allah spread the children of Israel across the earth. That is Quranic truth. If Pashtuns are descendants of Bani Israel, that is an Islamic lineage, a prophetic heritage, not a Jewish religious identity. The two are completely different. Dr. Shalva Weil, a researcher at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem who has studied this question, has noted that the parallels between Pashtun customs and ancient Israelite practices are real, but they reflect pre-Islamic Israelite culture, not Jewish religious practice. And Islam, which these communities accepted centuries ago, gave them their complete and final identity. Still, the genetic whisper is there, the Y chromosome marker haplogroup J, which is heavily concentrated in the ancient Middle East and among historical Jewish populations, appears in certain Pashtun clans at frequencies that simple Silk Road contact alone does not explain. Is it proof? No. Is it evidence worth studying? Absolutely. And this question, unlike the others, carries weight that goes beyond science. Because in a region where identity can get you killed, or a genetic whisper is more dangerous than a shout. But even this mystery, as big as it is not the deepest one. Because beneath all of it, beneath the BMAC, beneath the Harappans, beneath the Aryans, beneath Alexander, beneath the Mongols, beneath the Silk Road, there is something older, a genetic layer that predates every civilization we just talked about. And when scientists found it, they realized they couldn't fully explain it. In 2019, a team of over 100 scientists from Harvard, MIT, and the Max Planck Institute in Germany published what was, at the time, the most comprehensive ancient DNA study of South and Central Asia ever conducted. They weren't just looking at modern populations, they were sequencing DNA from actual ancient humans, bones from graves, thousands of years old. When they got to the oldest samples from the Afghan corridor, older than the BMAC, older than anything with a name, they found a genetic profile that didn't fit any existing category. It wasn't Iranian, it wasn't Steppe, it wasn't South Asian, it wasn't East Asian. It was something that had been living in this specific region since the Pleistocene, the Ice Age era, before agriculture existed anywhere on Earth. These were the original people of this land, hunter-gatherers who had been in these mountains and valleys for tens of thousands of years before the first city was ever built. Their genetic signal connects southward to the Andaman Islands and to the most ancient hunter-gatherer populations of South Asia. They were already here when the Neolithic Revolution arrived, already here when the BMAC was being built. It was already here when the first Harappan farmer planted his first seed, and traces of their DNA, faint but real, are still measurable in modern Afghans today. Think about that for a second. Through 7,000 years of conquest, through empires that rose and burned this land to the ground, through Alexander, through the Mongols, through the British, through the Soviets, through everything. A thread connecting living Afghan people to Stone Age hunter-gatherers has never fully broken. No ethnic group in Afghanistan claims descent from these ancient people. They have no name in any tradition, no myth, no festival, no prayer. They are known only through molecules, a sequence of base pairs that scientists noticed didn't match anything else. Afghanistan's oldest citizens are anonymous, living silently inside the genomes of people who will never know they carry them. And this is the part of this story that hit me the hardest, because every claim of ethnic purity in Afghanistan, every justification for persecution, for targeting one group, for saying someone doesn't belong, collapses completely when you look at this data. No one is purely anything. No one ever was. But even after all of this, after every layer of this story, there is one more thing, one final piece of data, one signal in the genome that no study has yet been able to explain. In multiple genomic studies of Afghan populations, published by researchers at Harvard, the Max Planck Institute in Germany, and the University of Texas, scientists repeatedly noted a small genetic component that simply does not fit any of the known models. It appears most visibly in certain Pashtun and Tajik samples from southern and eastern Afghanistan. It doesn't match Iranian ancestry, doesn't match Steppe, doesn't match South Asian, doesn't match East Asian. Scientists labeled it, noted it, and moved on, because they don't have an answer yet. 3 hypotheses exist, and none of them have been confirmed or disproven. The first, an ancient pre-Islamic population from the Arabian Peninsula entered Afghanistan through a southern route that has left almost no archaeological trace. The second, a Bronze Age population from the Iran-Turkmenistan border, whose ancient DNA has never actually been sequenced. The third, the most controversial one, a connection to an ancient East African lineage carried northward through Arabian sea trade networks. Thousands of years before written history begins, no one has tested these theories fully. No one has ruled them out. Dr. David Reich, the Harvard geneticist who co-led the landmark 2019 study, wrote in his book, Who We Are and How We Got Here. Ancient DNA has revealed that human prehistory was characterized by a series of massive and often surprising movements of people. Afghanistan is proof of that every single time. And right now, in 2026, 80% of Afghanistan's historically significant archaeological sites have never been sampled for ancient DNA. Not once. The bones are there. The chromosomes are waiting. We just haven't looked yet. Somewhere in an unexcavated valley in the Afghan highlands, there are graves that haven't been opened in 4,000 years. Inside those graves are answers to questions that scientists haven't even thought to ask yet. An Afghan man sitting in a refugee camp in Pakistan, an Afghan woman building a new life in Germany or California, a child in Kabul who has never heard the word haplogroup in his life. Every one of them is carrying a story that no textbook has ever printed, a story that goes back 7,000 years, runs through Bronze Age fire temples, through Indus Valley traders, through Greek soldiers, through Mongol horsemen, through Silk Road merchants, through prophetic bloodlines, and ends up here, in this moment, in a genome that belongs to no one civilization, and to every civilization that has ever existed. We started this video with one question. If Afghanistan's DNA doesn't belong here, then where does it belong? Maybe the answer was never about belonging. Maybe Afghanistan was never a place that DNA passed through. Maybe it was always the place that DNA came home to. And if that is true, then one question still sits unanswered, waiting for the next study, the next excavation, the next breakthrough. Who were the people in those unopened graves? We don't know yet. But when we find out, everything we think we know about this part of the world will change again.